Hello everyone, this is MC Deck Discussions and I'm Abby Small, and today we have another deck discussion, and that is with Spider-Woman, and it is called Infinite Spider UK. And for those who may not know, Spider-Woman allows you to build your deck. So if you look at her alter ego here, she has this double agent ability. Choose two aspects instead of one during deck building. You must include an equal number of cards for those aspects in your deck. So as you can see, I have 45 cards altogether. 11 of those are leadership cards and 11 of those are protection. And this is meant to be a solo deck. All right, so this is, my goal of this deck was centered around Spider UK. So Spider UK is a powerful card, even if you just have a protection deck doing a Web Warrior build. Note that Spider-Woman is not a Web Warrior. So notice in her alter ego side, she's Shield and Spy. On her hero side, she's Avenger and Spy. And so that I don't forget doing this, let's go ahead and look at her other abilities too while we're here. So her alter ego is an action. Look at the top card of any deck. I usually use that to just check out what's going to be coming up in the encounter deck. And then for her hero side, and she has 11 hit points and 6 hand size and 3 recovery on her alter ego side. And on her hero side, she is an Avenger and a Spy, 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 1 defense. But those can be bumped up significantly on any given turn. Still 11 hit points, of course, and a hand size of 5. She has this ability, Superhuman Agility, and Interrupt. When you play an aspect card, Spider-Woman gets +1 thwart, +1 attack, and +1 defense until the end of the round. Limit once per round for each aspect. So you can do it multiple times, but you can only do it once for each aspect. So if you play, let's say, a Justice card, that bumps up your thwart, attack, and defense by 1. If you play a protection card, that bumps it up by another 1. But if you play another protection card, that doesn't bump it up again, right? So that's for each round. And it stays for the entire round. So including when you're back on defense, you can defend using those bump ups as well. All right, so back to what I was starting to say, which is this deck is centered around Spider UK, but is meant to have the flexibility to be played any way that's needed at the time. So here's how I built it around Spider UK, but as you'll see when we look at the other parts of the build, Spider UK may be the center of what it's built around, but it's not, even a necessary part of the build for any given game, and you may or may not use Spider UK in a significant way on any given turn. But here is what was meant to facilitate utilizing Spider UK. So already when you're building a protection deck, Spider UK has some pretty cool tools available to him. So first of all, let's look at his abilities here, right? So Spider UK costs 3, 1 thwart, 2 attack, and 1 consequential damage for the thwart, 2 consequential damage for the attack. So a lot of times you're trying to avoid, especially using the attack, so that you can take advantage of these 5 hit points for when you're on defense. So here's why. So first of all, Spider UK is a Web Warrior, has this interrupt. When Spider UK defends against an attack, deal damage to the attacking enemy equal to the number of Web Warrior cards you control. And normally when I play in protection, I generally save this ability for taking care of minions. But in this deck, it's meant to also be used against the villain regularly. So let's look at the different ways that Spider UK can be enhanced. So first of all, let's start with the protection cards. We have Hangar Bay. So this card is a great card, especially when it's being used against minions. But in this deck, you'll see that there are ways to use it against the villain as well. So first of all, it's a location. It costs only 1. A location, max 1 per player, has this response. After an ally defends against an attack and is not defeated, exhaust this card, ready that ally. So a lot of times I'll use that against, in any deck, I'll use it against minions because, this interrupt, this is an interrupt, not a response. So it does the damage before the enemy does the damage. So you can, if you have enough Web Warrior cards out in play, then you can, deal enough damage, set things up to deal enough damage to the minion to just take it out, which would then allow you to ready Spider UK. But in this deck, it's meant to be that you could use it possibly against the villain and then also against the minion. So here's looking at a couple of ways that can happen also with some upgrades here. So you have energy shield. Actually, first let's look at, yes. So we have energy shield, which is you can attach to a character, max 1 per character. It's an item in tech, and it costs 0. Has this interrupt: when an attached character would take any amount of damage, spend X energy resources, prevent X of that damage. Now this is especially useful in a Spider-Woman deck, and here's why. So you're utilizing Spider UK on defense, and you have energy shield on Spider UK. Well, one of the things that you can do with this is we have her finesse cards. So these are Spider-Woman's upgrades. She has 2 of these, has a cost of 2. It's a condition, has this hero resource, exhaust finesse, generate a wild resource for an aspect card. Well, energy shield is an aspect card. It's protection. So you are allowed to use this for this energy shield. So you have 2 of these. And then in addition to that, we have Quinn Carrier, who could be used as a wild resource generator as well. And we also have on the hero side, where are you? Clarity of Purpose. So attached to a friendly character, usually I would attach, well, always I attach this to my hero, but exhaust this card and deal 1 damage to the attached character, and then generate a wild resource. So those are 4 cards alone, just as resource generators, that could help to prevent damage on Spider UK. So that's something that you can build up particularly well in a Spider-Woman deck. In addition, there are quite a few energy cards that could be in one's hand that could be used as resources too, and I definitely use that at times. All right. And then there's one other card, and that would be not Spider UK, excuse me. That's the one we've been talking about. Where are you? There we go, Scarlet Spider. So an ally that costs 3, 1 a thwart, 1 attack, but 5 health. And that's the really important thing. Notice 2 consequential damage on both the attack and thwart. So generally speaking, you're hoping not to use it for that. Has this interrupt: when another Web Warrior character would take any amount of damage, Scarlet Spider takes that damage instead. So Scarlet Spider can also help keep Spider UK on the board. However, the reason this is called Infinite Spider UK is because even if Spider UK gets defeated, we have more ways to bring Spider UK back. So that wouldn't necessarily be that you'd get to use it on both the villain and the minion in a given turn, but you can continually bring Spider UK back. So we have 3 copies of Make the Call to do that, to bring it back out of the discard pile. And then we also have 1 copy of Regroup that can be used when on defense. If Spider UK does get defeated, then Spider UK would come back to your hand. All right, now let's talk about a few other things before we go into some of the other aspects of this deck. So first of all, I already mentioned Spider-Woman is not a Web Warrior. So we have the ability to make her a Web Warrior in this deck because we have Warrior of the Great Web, right? So if you attach this to any character with Spider in its title, Spider-Woman has Spider in her title, then the attached character gains the Web Warrior trait. In addition, you gain this response after a Web Warrior ally leaves play. Attached character gets +1 ATK until the end of the phase. So that means that in addition to Spider-Woman's ability to give her +1 thwart, attack, and defense, this card, if we do have any Web Warriors leave play, especially say that when you're on the offense and you have one of your Web Warriors go ahead and attack or thwart and leave play, then that could add +1 attack for until the end of that phase as well. So that can prove valuable because we do have another way, of which actually I forgot about this. So we also have rapid response, and this allows that to happen where a Web Warrior could leave play and then even come back into play immediately after that. Okay? All right, and we also have Web of Life and Destiny in here to kind of round out that Web Warrior build. But let's go ahead and look at the other allies we have in this deck now. So we have quite a few web warriors. Ghost Spider is the only one that you cannot play unless we control a web warrior card. So that's very important. So there are lots of ways to do that, right? We could actually have another ally out. We could have Web of Life of Destiny out, which, by the way, I forgot to mention, this Web of Life and Destiny has a cost of 3 until Spider-Woman gets Warrior of the Great Web. Then it would go back to the cost of 0 for if your identity has the Web Warrior trait, right? So this card's important too. Of course, I should probably mention its response. After a Web Warrior ally leaves play, choose a player. That player draws a card. Note that you do not have to exhaust this, so it can be used multiple times in any given turn around. Okay. All right. So let's keep going with the allies now. So we have Captain Marvel, who comes in the deck. In my 8 plays of this deck, I never once played Captain Marvel. She is an awesome ally. After Captain Marvel, she has this response. After Captain Marvel, use a basic power, draw a card. She also has 2 attack and 2 thwart. So she is an awesome ally, and you can even allow her to survive really well with Energy Shield. But I pretty much just kind of chose not to use her and focused on the other allies instead. So coming back to Ghost Spider. So Ghost Spider, play only if you control Web Warrior card. I'm not going to go into the details of each of these. You can pause the video to look at the details of what they do. We also have, I'm going to skip to just the Web Warriors first. So we have Scarlet Spider that we've mentioned already. We also have Silk in the deck here. We also have Spider-Man 2099. I will mention this response here because this is particularly important. It has this response after Spider-Man 2099 uses a basic power, return a Web Warrior ally in play to its owner's hand. So that can facilitate keeping getting Spider UK back into play if it's running low on health or any of the other Web Warriors. And then we also, of course, we have here Spider-Man. So who is, one of the Spider-Man Peter Parker, one of those who a person typically wants to put in pretty much every Web Warrior deck. Right. Now, note that Silk has this response. I guess I am going to talk about this one. So first of all, only costs 2. So that actually is highly valuable in this deck. But it has an attack of 1, thwart of 1, health of 2, has this response. After you play Silk from your hand, if you control another Web Warrior card, search the encounter deck for treachery and discard it. So note again that if you can still play Silk no matter what, but you can only use that ability if you do have a Web Warrior card in play. Note again that Web of Life and Destiny is a Web Warrior card, so that can facilitate any of those abilities that utilize that. All right, so let's look at some of the other aspects of play here. We've mentioned quite a bit already. Let's go ahead and actually let's take a look at some of the other cards in the deck. So we also have Across the Spiderverse. So this is kind of like a make the call, but that can facilitate Web Warriors coming into play. So you have to exhaust a Web Warrior card you control. This card costs 2. And then you can search your deck and discard pile for a Web Warrior ally, put it into play, then choose a player. That player may spend 3 resources of any type to repeat this ability, which actually in this deck, I did repeat this ability at least a couple of times in my 8 plays. And and I forgot to mention the rest of the allies. The other allies in this deck are meant to help with card draw. And so that's Nick Fury, who has the ability to draw 3 cards, Maria Hill, who can draw you a card, and that's to help with setting up. So the first round the first time through your deck, you're really trying to set up a bunch of your upgrades and supports, trying to get out as many of those as possible. And most of them are pretty high priority, right? So, Hangar Bay is one that I don't care about as much the first round, but the second time through the deck, I try to get that one. But Quinn Carrier is relatively high priority. Web of Life and Destiny, very high priority. And then our Clarity of Purpose tends to be a high priority. And our 2 Finesse, at least getting one of those out the first round, those are also a high priority. And then Warrior of the Great Web as well. A person may want to, there are already 45 cards in here, but a person may want to put in an extra copy of Warrior of the Great Web to possibly get it so that Spider-Woman has a better chance of getting that earlier. But the truth is, I didn't really care about that. That wasn't important to me. I just wanted to get it out by the end of the first time pass through my deck. And note that my first pass through the deck, when I was using Make the Call, most of the time I was going to target Nick Fury or Maria Hill in order to get that card draw to facilitate setup. So the first round through, I was usually using them, and then other rounds, then I was focused on usually my Web Warriors after that. In addition, we have Call for Backup in order to get, usually, that would be in order to facilitate playing Nick Fury and get that card draw as well. And so going back to the events, so we were talking about across the Spider-Verse, we also have Face the Past for additional card draw, right? So this is, search your encounter deck, discard pile, set aside area for your Nemesis minion, reveal it, then you get to ready your hero and draw 3 cards. All right, and then after that, this card would be removed from the game. Okay, but a great card, again, to help with setup of your deck, the first pass through. All right. And then after that, player side schemes already mentioned Call for Backup, but we also have Build Support, which is meant to help get out either a Quinn Carrier or a Web of Life and Destiny. But if it's already been used for that, we have several other targets as well. So lots of targets for Build Support, but the primary targets, Quinn Carrier and Web of Life and Destiny. I tended to go for a Quinn Carrier first because I knew it could facilitate playing Web of Life and Destiny if I didn't have Warrior of the Great Web out. All right. So other than that, the only card that we haven't mentioned yet is this upgrade, Ready for a Fight. Included all 3 copies of this. Only has a cost of 1, is a preparation, and max 1 per player, so you can only have 1 of these out at a time. And it has this interrupt: when an enemy would scheme, discard Ready for a Fight, change your hero form, that enemy attacks you instead. So you'll notice I did not add Professor X into this deck for confusing the villain. So this is meant to be one of the main cards for helping to make sure I can go down to Alter Ego side when that was necessary to heal up Spider-Woman. Or if I did happen to have Jessica Drew's Apartment out, right? Has this Alter Ego action: exhaust Jessica Drew's Apartment, search the top 5 cards of your deck for an aspect card and add it to your hand, shuffle your deck. So if I happen to have this in play, I did not prioritize it, but if it was in play, then I might want to go, then I would usually want to go to Alter Ego more frequently, and so I would tend to play Ready for a Fight more often. A lot of times I would just get 1 Ready for a Fight there, but I would stay in my hero side for a great deal of the time. But we did have, even though we didn't have Professor X in this deck, we do have her own cards, Pheromones, right? A 2-cost event, and it stuns and confuses the enemy, right? And so and note that this card counts as a leadership card. So that's part of what's special about her own cards, a lot of her own cards. 2 copies in her events. She has 2 of them that count as protection cards, 2 of them that count as justice cards, 2 of them that cost as leadership cards, and 2 of them, her Venom Blast that deals 5 damage, that count as aggression cards. So those also help her to utilize her ability, which is really cool. All right. So, like I said, it was meant to be that the deck was centered around facilitating, utilizing Spider UK again and again, or even keeping Spider UK out to use again and again that way, or to recur, as I mentioned. But the reality is, this deck is hugely flexible, and only sometimes did I choose to really focus on Spider UK. Right, we had Spider-Man's ability to be able to ready one of your Web Warrior characters. You had Spider-Man 2099, who could put Web Warrior allies back to your hand. We could take advantage of those types of things to have Web of Life and Destiny, to draw cards. We could sacrifice Silk to draw cards, bring them back with Make the Call. So one of the cool things was being able to utilize these kinds of protection cards, but having the cards like Make the Call and Regroup to be able to bring those cards back regularly. So very dominant deck. Here are the villains that I faced. I rotated in a new one. So we still have Claw and Black Widow, but then I brought in here Batroc, and then we still have Magneto in here, right? So tested them again, standard and expert, and was undefeated against all of them, and just dominant, actually, right? And which was really cool because these various villains have very different ways in order that you have to play against them. Batroc, you don't really want to defend as much as you can with your allies, and because otherwise you could end up losing the game by doing so. But this deck, because of all the card draw involved in it, because of all the resource generators, it handled Batroc's card that every time an ally is defeated or a minion is defeated, any character is defeated, you put a marker, you put a thwart scheme, on. You put one of those on your on this card that's on the side, and if that builds up to 4, it flips over to the other side, and then you build up to 4 again, and you lose the game. The only way to get rid of those is to spend a resource, but there are so many resource generators in this deck, you can't use finesse for them, but you have Quinn Carrier, and you also have Clarity of Purpose, and then you can also spend cards in your hand, but because you can draw a lot of cards if you choose to, so when I played Batroc, I wanted to draw a lot of cards, I could spend some of those cards very readily in order to get rid of those cards and not lose the game. In addition to that, finesse did still help with that, because you could then use finesse to play some of your own cards that were aspect cards. So you might use a different card that's in your hand in order to help keep Batroc from winning, but you can then use your finesse cards to play some card in your hand. And let me go ahead and show you that card that could lose the game, so that in case you haven't played with it in a recent time, then you know what I'm talking about. All right, so when you play with Batroc, you have this environment in play, alert level. So if there are at least 4 threat here, you remove all threat from here and flip this card. And then on the other side, actually, do we have a picture of the other side? Yes, we do. So on alert level, this is the high side. This other side was the low side. So when you go to the high side, first of all, it gives Batroc an extra +1 scheme and +1 attack. But also, if there is at least 4 threat here, the players lose the game. In addition to that, if you look at Batroc, he has an A side and a B side. Whether you're on either side, he has this forced response. After Batroc attacks, place 1 threat on alert level. So every time you attack with Batroc, it puts a threat on alert level, but also it has this forced response after a character is defeated. So that means either a minion or, when you're in solo play, either a minion or an ally. Then if they're defeated by anything except for consequential damage, place 1 threat here. So this can build up very quickly if you're defeating minions, if you're using your allies to defend with. And so that's why you, first of all, you want to try to minimize your usage of allies to defend with, but also you want to have plenty of resources available in order to use this hero action, spend 1 resource of any type, remove 1 threat from here. And notice that's on both the low side and the high side. You can spend that resource. So Spider-Woman's this deck, with the card draw, but also all of those, all the resource generators, really make it relatively easy to take care of this, especially compared to when I played this, played against Batroc before. So let's see if there's anything else to discuss about the deck. Okay, no, that's it. So that's it for the deck. I highly recommend it. I thought this deck was a ton of fun to play. I loved the flexibility of actually either emphasizing Spider UK against certain villains. Some villains, it wasn't really a good way to do it. By the way, one of the nice things about Spider UK too, for instance, when I was playing against, who is that? Where are those enemies? When I was playing against Black Widow. So Black Widow, when you attack her, she discards a card, and then it might have a preparation ability on that card and trigger it. Well, when you utilize Spider UK, you get around that because this interrupt is not an attack. So you can just deal damage to her and not have that triggered. So that ends up being a really nice way to deal additional damage to her. So as I was saying, whether you decide to really focus on Spider UK in the way the deck is built around him, or just utilize the flexibility of the deck. There are so many different ways to utilize it to defeat any villain. that it just makes it a fun deck to play around with different ways to do so. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. And as usual, I love having conversations with people in the comments. So if you wish to have a conversation, go ahead and leave a comment. I appreciate those no matter what. Have a good one, everybody.